Hey, y'all. If you want to head to our website to check out all the different things Pizzazz offers, then just head to pizzazzart.com. That's PZAZZART.com. You will see our online memberships. We've got Kids Club memberships, our Lettering Club membership, our one project a month membership. We call that Paint and Praise. You will see some freebies that we've got there for you, and you'll see our local classes if you're local. So head to the website, check it out, pizzazzart.com, PZAZZART.com. Hey, y'all, this is Casey with the Here's Hope podcast, and today we are going to talk about sharing those wow God moments. So I've got a quick question for you. Have you ever had something so good happen to you that you were just immediately, oh my God, God just totally showed up? There is no way that would have just happened without the Holy Spirit, the God of this universe, answering my specific prayer. Wow, God, you were so cool. Have you ever felt like that? It could have been through a physical need that was met, a financial burden that was lifted, relationships mended, job opportunities that have been opened when you saw no way, connections made that you felt like were ordained. There's so many ways. But perhaps you saw some of these ways that God is just working in your life, or actually that you see how active He is and present in your life. And you see these God stories, but then you feel like you can't share them. Like maybe you feel like you want to share it because it's so good that it could help people, but you just think, what would other people think? Would they think I'm bragging? Will they think I'm trying to bring attention to myself? Would they even believe me? Sometimes we have that push and pull of, gosh, you're so cool, I want to tell everybody. And then the opposite side is, oh, I should probably just keep that to myself because it sounds like I'm going to brag on myself or something like that. Or it sounds too personal because it's about my finances. Or it sounds too crazy, people aren't going to believe me. We have that push-pull of wanting to share, not wanting to share, those wow God moments. I have been there. Recently, we had God do something super cool in our business, and I so wanted to tell people, and I just wanted to let people know, like I wanted to say, y'all, God is the same God today as He was yesterday, and He is still doing miracles, and He is still providing for people in crazy ways. I want to share this story with you. I want to share this God moment with you. But first, I want to read Luke 5:4-10, because I read it a lot, but I read this recently after the cool God thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, God is doing the same thing still. Okay, so let's just go ahead and read Luke 5:4-10. When He had finished speaking, this is Jesus, when Jesus had finished speaking, He said to Simon, put out into deep water and let down the nets for a catch. And Simon answered, Master, we have worked hard all night and hadn't caught anything. In other words, he's, dude, we know what we're doing here. There ain't no fish. This is our job. We've been doing it. We know how to do it. There's no fish. But he says, but because you say so, I will let down the nets. And when they had done so, they caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. So they signaled to their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and they filled both boats so full that it began to sink. Y'all, that is some good stuff. And that is some stuff that we read and we think that just happens in the Bible. And then sometimes we say, oh, no. God is still doing that kind of stuff if we will just open our eyes and see it. So in Luke, what do we notice? We notice that, okay, they're at their jobs. They are fishermen. That is their profession. That's what they did for a living, their livelihood, their jobs. That was the way they provided food for their family, money for survival. And that is where Jesus met them. He worked this miracle through their jobs, through the things that they did every single day. They were doing the very thing they had been trained to do, the thing they were good at, the thing that they had been doing for a long time. And Jesus offered a simple tweak. He said, go out deep and do it again. At first, their thoughts seemed to be resistant because they said, we've already done this, been doing it all night. But then their actions followed with, but because you say so, we will. And then their nets filled to overflowing and nets started breaking and they had to call it for backup. Y'all, that is so cool. And like I said, we hear this and we sometimes think, man, I wish that kind of stuff would still happen. I wish Jesus would meet me at my job and show me how to have some nets that are overflowing. We tend to think that it just doesn't happen anymore. But y'all, I'm here to tell you it does. He does. Jesus is still meeting us right where we are and providing in crazy ways. So let me just tell you a quick story that happened in our business a few months ago. There were some areas of just business that had been hard, tight. We're trying to see all different ways that we can cut back on spending and expenses because we're just part of business, part of what you do. Okay. So there's these cuts that we're trying to make because some areas are just a little bit tighter. And we'd gone through a time of prayer and fasting, or me and my husband had, and so much came out of that time. But one thing that came out were these little promptings that God was leading me to do within our business. They're really small tweaks, but I did them. I was obedient in them and did them. And y'all, at the same time that we were leaving our downtown studio, so much happened at one time. And the almost exact same time that we were getting out of our downtown studio, we were also launching an online workshop. Now, we've been doing these online workshops for a long time, but we were launching an online workshop that would then lead into our membership. And y'all, again, we'd done prayer and fasting. We had made a small tweak, nothing big. And during that online workshop, we had over 3,000, that's just the roundabout number, 3,000 workshop attendees, 3,000 people to do our online workshop. Then we had over 400 members join our membership in our Shopify store we sell stuff every month, but we don't sell a ton of stuff. That Shopify store during that time sold over 10 times what it normally does. Y'all, these are biblical numbers to me, okay? To me, that's a biblical number. We hear of God feeding the 5,000. It seems, oh my gosh, he provided for and multiplied food and fed for the 5,000. But here, okay, we have 3,000 people in our online workshops that were being drawn to our business. That is a big deal, y'all. We've done these workshops for 5 years, or maybe more. Maybe I'm not even counting right. Yeah, 6 years. 6 years, multiple times a year, and we have never seen results like this. Our nets were overflowing. Did we have to call in extra people? We absolutely did. We had to call in extra people who were working extra hours. It was an overflow, a miracle, a time in our business where we can only say, wow, God. Wow, God. And honestly, the timing was not lost either. At the same time, I was experiencing hurt through having to leave the downtown, but then seeing God have this overflow to where our nets were breaking, it felt like just a God hug. I got you. I got you, Casey. I got you. We're going to be taking care of you. That's what it felt like. So I had this huge wow God thing. And y'all, as excited as I was on the inside, as much as I noticed that, hey, y'all, this is a modern day cast out your nets and just see if I don't feel them kind of a story, I didn't tell anybody. Now, of course, a few of our employees knew, but I didn't share this awesome God story with family or friends or Sunday school or social media. I just didn't feel like I could. Even though there's a part of me that wanted to shout it from the rooftops that God was still so good, the other part of me, and this may be how you have thought before too, the other part of me was just thinking, people think I'm bragging? Will they think that I'm just trying to draw attention to myself and my business? Will they even believe it? There are a few times in Sunday school class or other small group settings where everything in me knew if I shared this story with this other person who I knew was going through a financial hardship, that it could possibly be encouraging. It could help build their faith. It could help remind them that God is the same God today as he was yesterday. But then doubt creeped in. But maybe they wouldn't take it as encouragement, that little voice told me. Maybe it's such a crazy story that it feels like it would never happen to them. Maybe you just need to keep quiet, Casey. Like those are things I'm hearing. to push the pull. So I sat there and I kept quiet and I didn't say anything. But let me ask you, does my keeping quiet help anybody? Does me holding on to the good things that God is doing and not telling anybody, what good is that doing? Is that building anybody's faith? Is that proclaiming his goodness? No good is coming from me keeping quiet about what God is doing. And the same is true of you. When you have those cool ways that God is providing or working or showing up in your life, we have a tendency to want to hold them to ourselves. But how can we share these stories to help build others' faith without feeling like we are bragging on ourselves? How do we do that? I've got just a few little tips, just 2 little things to remember just to help you in sharing your story. So number 1, remember, you are not bragging on yourself. You are bragging on God. You did not do this. This is so big that only God gets all the credit. So no, don't brag on yourself, but brag on God, yes, all day long. It's his doing and he gets the credit. And I do not have a problem with bragging on God. Number 2, ask yourself, will this testimony of what God has done in my life, will it help somebody else? If the answer is yes, then what are you waiting for? So often in the Bible, we see God telling his people to go write this on a scroll so that it's remembered, or build an altar and call this the Lord is my banner as a remembrance of what I did. Or in other parts of the Bible, he says, take these stones and make a memorial to the Lord so that every time you look at these stones, they are reminded. You see, all throughout Scripture, God is encouraging his people to some way document, tell, remind people of his goodness so that others around and future generations would see it and remember. He knew by reminding each generation of what was done before, it would build their faith as to what he's capable of doing. And the same goes for you. When you share what he's done for you, it builds others' faith and they start to see what he can do for them. So ask yourself, will this help someone else? So number 1, brag on God all day long. You're not bragging on yourself. This didn't come from you, so don't think for a second it did. Just like with us and the big workshop numbers, hey, we've been doing this for a long time. It never happened before. So I know it's not my own doing. These are numbers that are only of God. So brag on God all day long. And number 2, ask yourself if it will help someone else. And if so, go for it. And sometimes before we can share those wow God moments, sometimes we have to stop and just take note of them for our own self. Because sometimes we move through life so fast that we don't even take the time to notice when those specific prayers were answered. Maybe you prayed for protection and you were protected, but you barely noticed. You just kept moving on with your life. Okay, God answered it again. You just kept moving. You prayed for provision and God provided. But as soon as he provided, you forgot and we're on to the next thing. I encourage you, take notes for yourself, whether it's in your journal or in your head, whatever works for you. Make notes of all these places that you see God showing up. Don't be so busy that you don't take notice of what he's doing. Take notice and then don't be afraid to share them. We got to open our mouth, y'all, and share God's goodness. There is a whole world out there that does not believe that he still works, that does not believe that he's real, that doesn't believe he cares about things like our job or our money. And y'all, that is just not true. Use your God stories to show others how real and how personal he is. Remember, it is not about you. It's about him and his greatness. You share your stories so that others can say, wow, God, you are so cool. I hope y'all enjoyed that podcast. Y'all be sure to go like, subscribe this, leave a review. Let us know how you're liking it. We like that feedback. And if you want to follow us on other social platforms, on Instagram, it's Pizzazz Art Studio. Same for Facebook. And Pizzazz is P-Z-A-Z-Z. Pizzazz Art Studio. Go check us out and see what all we have to offer over there.